to help us understand what goes on inside the mind of Barack Obama, we call on another Chicagoan, but somebody who has very different political points of view. It would be my former congressional colleague from the class of 1994, the one-time Republican congressman from Illinois. In fact, he defeated the then Ways and Means Chairman Dan Rostenkowski. Michael Patrick Flanagan joining us again from our Newsmax Washington Bureau. So, Michael, take us through it. What is the president up to?
Well, good morning, J.D. I think the president is, it's about power and it's about politics. It's not about policy. And he knows that Republicans are going to hyperventilate over process. That's what we do. We hyperventilate over process constantly. Every commentator from the right this morning has talked about it's unconstitutional, it's a grab of power, he's an emperor, blah, blah, blah. It's not one Republican discusses the merits of it. It's about the process. And he knows that he can put us on a process argument. And he knows that we lose every process argument we've ever had. And however much we're right with government shutdown or whatever it is, we lose the process argument. This is pure politics. You know, John Cass wrote a great article yesterday in the Tribune where he talked about Boss Obama. It's about power politics. He got put back on his heels in the last election. His policies were on the ballot. He got shellacked. And so now he has to retake the initiative. He has to retake the advance on the Republicans. And the best way to steal our march is to make us talk about policy, an argument we cannot win. The way we must react is the way Boehner reacted this morning. It was brilliant. Not furious, not upset, not screaming about policy issues, not screaming about process issues. Just a quiet lament that the president doesn't want to work with us, never has, never will, and we have to continue to do what we have to do alone. And we'd much rather do it with him, but he wants to go it alone, so we'll have to do the same. We need to just smile, be the cheerful conservatives Reagan wanted us to be, drive on, do our work, send the bills to the president, and hopefully work with him after that. Well, if we do that, we will win. We have no choice but to win. The Constitution gives us all the cards. We're going to win this argument on a policy basis. It's the politics that's still up for grabs.
But
what we have to do is be cheerful and happy.
One point well taken about the cheerful persistence of Ronald Reagan, but that brings us back to the Constitution and the constitutional cards that are held by the legislative branch, and specifically the Senate, with the ability to having to actually approve presidential nominees for the cabinet and for ambassadorships and for the courts. Does the Republican Senate react by essentially putting all those appointments into a deep freeze?
I'm going to disagree with most of my colleagues today. I'm going to say no. To have some sort of petty tit for tat to keep this argument going, we'll lose that argument. Politically speaking, we're going to get slapped if we do that. Our answer is go on the business of government, go about running the country, do what Harry Reid has refused to do for the 8 years he's been there, and legislate the business of the nation. And if that means approving appointees, the rigorous process that we should put them through, to be sure, but don't hold them up just for the sake of having a tit for tat. Drive on, do the work we have to do it with a smile, do it with almost a dismissive attitude about executive order, defund it if that's appropriate, do what needs to be done, but don't get petty about it, because then we begin to lose the process argument, an argument we have never won and we won't win now, and that's the argument we're being baited into.
All right, Michael Patrick Flanagan, we're going to bring you back on the other side of the break to talk more about options. You mentioned the D word, defund, how to decouple a defunding from the argument of, oh, it's shutting the government down. We'll see if we can get that done. We'll talk about that more. More with Michael Patrick Flanagan as we continue here on America's Forum. Please stay with us. Let's continue our conversation with former Congressman Michael Patrick Flanagan, joining us from Washington, D.C. Now, Michael, before the break, we were talking about different things, and you said it's important for Republicans not to hyperventilate, yet the president is walking away from the Constitution to do this. So, how do you strike the proper tone not with impeachment, I think we understand that, but with defunding government. And how can that be done without seeing the press stand with the White House and say, oh, there are those Republicans shutting down government?
You know, I agree with you, and I as a former president used to say, I feel your pain. But I got to tell you, I watched the other side and watched what they say. And I spent a few minutes this morning coming in watching Geraldo Rivera have an out-of-body experience on Fox this morning. And Geraldo Rivera hyperventilated for 4 solid minutes about what racist Republicans are and how we have ruined the world time and time again, and how the president has to right this wrong because only he can do it. It's emotional argument like that when we get sucked into it, that at that point we are done because we're going to lose, because we don't argue like that. If we're going to defund it, Hal Rogers said yesterday, we can't defund it because it's paid for by fees and it's money that comes directly to the executive branch and therefore they control it. We can attach riders, we can attach language to any appropriation going up there that says you cannot, prohibiting spending in particular areas. We absolutely can defund it by direct action. If the president chooses to ignore that, then we have a constitutional crisis perhaps. But we have to take appropriate measured action. Not a tit for tat, not a back and forth, not a we're not going to approve your appointees, or we're going to withhold money to the executive office of the president, or we're going to, get even. We must avoid this at all costs. We have to keep a cheerful smile, say we're going to obey the Constitution, we're going to constitutionally protect the borders, we have the right in Congress to do this. The Supreme Court has time and again declared that this is not a shared power, this is something that's unique to the Congress. And Congress must then go ahead and legislate. What the president has done is got out in front of the Republicans because he knows we're going to do an immigration bill. There's an immigration bill coming from Congress probably by March that's going to be on its way to the president. He wants to either have the moral high ground to veto it, or he wants to be able to say, look, I forced him to finally do this with his executive action. We're going to be having a very different argument about this in March, and we need to get set up for that argument now, rather than getting lost in a process argument of violating the Constitution, these other things. Move forward, take appropriate action, but don't let this shape the narrative of immigration.
Michael, the narrative of immigration, a lot of people concerned. Our old classmate Tom Coburn, now retiring from the U.S. Senate, had a warning. Let's listen to Senator Coburn.
The country's going to go nuts because they're going to see it as a move outside of the authority of the president. And it's going to be a very dangerous situation. You're going to see, hopefully not, but you could see instances of anarchy.
What do you mean?
Well, you could see violence.
Well, what about that, Michael Patrick Flanagan? 40 seconds. Violence possible?
It becomes the president's albatross. If we participate in this argument and we decide to fight him tooth and nail, we get accused of fomenting this violence if it comes. Let the president hang with this. His whole purpose here is pure power politics to provoke a reaction. If we sustain ourselves and do what we're supposed to do, constitutionally mandated as congressional members, and take a congressional pose on this and let his craziness from the 1600 do what it does, we're going to be better off politically,
We
and
got
we're going to governmentally
Got to
win
say
the
goodbye.
argument.
Thanks, Mike. Talk to you later.